Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military with Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 10th of April of 2026. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And once again, at the beginning of this video, I would like to discuss the most important update that's we received from Russia by decision of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, Putin, in connection with the approaching Orthodox holiday of Easter. A ceasefire is declared from 4 p.m. on April 11th until the end of the day on the April 12th of 2026. Russia proceeds from the assumption that the Ukrainian side will follow its example. And probably an hour after this article and this statement was made by the Russian authorities, pro-Ukrainian sources and Zelensky himself made lots of statements and published a lot of articles on this matter. Ukraine has repeatedly stated that we are ready for minor steps. We proposed a ceasefire for the Easter holidays this year and will act accordingly. People need an Easter without threats and a real movement towards peace, and Russia has a chance not to return to strikes after Easter. And when Zelensky made this statement that it's the Russian side that needs to make this decision, the Russians stated that Peskov, for the spokesperson of the Kremlin, emphasized that peace between Russia and Ukraine could come today if Zelensky makes a decision and takes responsibility. Russia wants not a truth but a stable and sustainable peace. Information about Putin announcing an Easter truce has spread widely. So the truce will be the Easter truce shall be. It will start tomorrow, which means that during this day, during the upcoming night, and during the morning of the 11th of April of 2026, we'll see lots of clashes, lots of updates about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. Both the Russians and the Ukrainians continue attacking each other, and the previous 24 hours weren't an exception from this rule. And the Russians attacked the territory of Ukraine, and according to information we have, lots of explosions were recorded on the territory of Odessa region. So several important videos were received from this area during the previous several days. I would like just to remind you that just yesterday we discussed this video, and here we can see a tanker with fuel, according to the author of this video, that was attacked by Russian drones. So this episode and this video was made from the area of the city of Ismail in the most southwestern parts of Ukraine. And the author of this video stated that that was the first time when the Russians attacked a fuel tanker of Ukraine with drones. Today we received a few more videos from the same part of Ukraine, but here we can see how the special forces, special services of Ukraine were trying to stabilize the situation after another attack. It seems that the Russians attacked another object of energy infrastructure on the territory of the settlement of Vilkova. As of the previous 24 hours and as of the previous day, the most important videos are coming also from strikes on objects of energy infrastructure. And this is probably the most important video, and here we can see several oil depots on the territory of the Odessa region that were attacked by Russian drones. As a result of attack, we see that this facility was significantly damaged. And later we received another video from the same area that was attacked by Russians. Here we can see a big hole on this object of fuel infrastructure. We see oil coming out from this object, which means that the Russians during the previous 24 hours attacked and continued attacking objects of energy infrastructure of Ukraine. And the same thing we can see and from the Ukrainian side during the previous 24 hours. The most important video is coming from the area of the settlement of Prodovoy, and here we can see how a civilian was making a video of how another object of Russian energy infrastructure was damaged and maybe even completely destroyed. If we zoom in, we'll see this facility that was attacked by the Ukrainian drones between the 9th and the 10th of April of 2026. I'm just trying to tell you that, and probably even to remind you that during the 2025, in the last year, there was an Easter ceasefire as well. But the last time the last year, the Russians and the Ukrainians agreed on Easter ceasefire, and they agreed on energy truce. And neither the Russians nor the Ukrainians were attacking each other a year ago. But this year, both the Russians and the Ukrainians decided just to declare an Easter ceasefire without energy truce. And as we can see, both the Russians and the Ukrainians are attacking each other. So which means that maybe this upcoming night we'll see more strikes, because, for example, the chief of the presidential office of Ukraine stated that requests from partners to stop attacks on Russia's energy sector are indeed coming, but Ukraine will not refuse such attacks, which means that maybe this upcoming night, but everything is possible. And telling the truth, both the Russians and the Ukrainians are afraid of provocations during the upcoming night, because everything is possible. During the next 12 hours before the Easter truce come in power, a lot of things might happen, a lot of provocations might happen that can lead the entire truce completely without any chances to return to the negotiation process. So that is why both the Russians and Ukrainians probably feel themselves not very comfortable during this period of time. So let's wait and see, of course, what is going to happen. And most likely something big will happen, because it's not just about truce, it's not just about Russia, and it's not just about Ukraine and the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. The most important thing that during the Easter truce, the parliament elections are going to take place in Hungary. And this is the area where both the Russians, the Ukrainians, the Americans, and the European Union have interests, which means that during this upcoming weekend, very bad things might happen, at least on the territory of Hungary, and which can lead to unpredictable consequences. But something tells me that Ukraine might have problems after the end of the election process on the territory of Hungary. We know that the Russians and the Americans support the current Prime Minister Viktor Orban, and Zelensky and the European Union support the opposition. Okay, now let's return back to Ukraine and let's continue. And let's talk right now about the situation on the ground. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of very important updates. And first, let's talk about the Sumy direction. During the previous day, the Russians attacked the city of Sumy, and this explosion took place probably a minute before I started making this video. The Russians with the Geran drone attacked the territory of the city, and we have changes. According to information we have, according to the group of forces north, and according to the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians finished the battle for the village of Myropilsky. And based on the report that was made by the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, we have adjusted the map. So as you can see, the Russians are keeping advancing along the border, and according to information we have, according to the intelligence service of Ukraine, the Russians are planning to create a buffer zone along the entire border with Ukraine. So this article was published several days ago. Russia is signaling interest in creating a so-called buffer zone in Vinnytsia region near the Transnistrian border, according to the comments from a senior Ukrainian official. Furthermore, the Ukrainians are saying that, according to their intelligence information, the Russians are planning to create a buffer zone along Transnistria. So something like this the Russians are planning to create, but the Ukrainians are saying that the Russians don't have means, don't have tools for this right now. Furthermore, according to the intelligence service, the Russians are planning to create a buffer zone along the border, not just with the Russian Federation, but also along the border with Russia itself. So something like this the Russians are planning to create, but once again, according to the intelligence service of Ukraine, the Russians currently don't have tools and don't have resources to do this. As of now, the Russians have just tools and resources, according to pro-Ukrainian sources, to create a buffer zone along the border with the Russian Federation, where there are no problems and issues to support the current combat operations. So once again, the Russians established control over the settlement of Myropilsky on the eastern Sumy direction. Now let's talk about the Kharkiv area. During the previous 24 hours, we received several interesting signals. First of all, the Russians are keeping using their drones of the next generations. We're talking about the 4th and the 5th generation. And here we can see a video of how Russians destroyed another object of energy infrastructure, probably a fuel depot, with the Geran 5th or 4th generation. Another important update is that according to several sources, explosions were recorded in the area of Pechenegi Dam. So this territory was under very heavy fire according to different reliable sources, and it seems that according to pro-Ukrainian sources, it seems that the Russians are trying to test these sites, to test this construction, and to understand when time comes whether they are able to destroy this dam and to flood this territory with water. If it's possible, of course, the Ukrainians will suffer huge problems with logistics. They will not be able to do anything here, and the Russians from their side will be able probably to break through Ukraine's defense and to improve their position significantly in the northeastern part of Kharkiv region. As of now, no changes were recorded, but it seems that some plans are brewing. Furthermore, and even if the Russians are going to start anything in this area, obviously this is going to happen only after May's holidays or maybe after Easter. The Kupiansk direction, small changes were recorded in the most northwestern parts of the settlement. These are the changes on the ground. We have a video published by pro-Ukrainian sources of how Ukrainians were attacking positions of Russians right exactly in this part of the settlement. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map. So the Russians, according to different sources, started another offensive operation in the city of Kupiansk, trying to establish complete control over the settlement, to dig in deeper and to force the Ukrainians to fall back. So it's already 6th or 7th battle of Kupiansk is already ongoing. Now let's move further and let's talk about the Slaviansk direction. This is the most difficult direction, the heaviest direction. The Russians are increasing their pressure on the city of Slaviansk from many areas, from area of Liman, from area of Kramatorsk, Siversk, and so on. And when talking about timings, when talking about schedule, we know that every single year we have an Easter. We have the Easter, and every single year both the Russians and the Ukrainians declare an Easter truce. This year is not an exception. And almost every single year between Easter and between May holidays, the Russians are trying to improve their positions and to show significant result. Always before the 9th of May, before the Victory Day. So which means that most likely during this short period of time between Easter that ends on the 12th of April and before May's holidays, before 1st or 9th of May, the Russians will try probably to improve their positions. The Russians most likely will try to either take under complete control the city of Liman, where the clashes are already taking place, and it seems that this is an option, or the Russians will try to take under complete control of almost everything till the city of Nikolaevka. We're talking about the villages of Krivoluka, Alexandrovka, and Dibrova, which will improve the Russian position significantly in this area and which will allow the Russians to establish a certain fire control over the cities of Kramatorsk and Slaviansk, and this is going to be basically the beginning of the final battle for the rest of the Donbas region. As for the previous 24 hours, we received lots of updates. According to the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, the Russians have captured the settlement of Dibrova, and based on the report that was published by the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, we have adjusted the map. So this is the village of Dibrova that was taken, and today we received several updates from the city of Kramatorsk, and the sources are saying that Kramatorsk over the past weeks has slowly but steadily become more and more dangerous. The most affected parts of the city are the central, northern and eastern parts. The threat of Russian barrel artillery as well as Russian FPV drones is more present than ever. So according to this article, the Russians are trying to create something like a kill zone in this area with the purpose not to allow the Ukrainians to use this city of Kramatorsk for communication purposes. We are talking about the biggest, the major Slaviansk-Konstantinovka agglomeration. So this is the agglomeration we're talking about. This is the beginning of this agglomeration and this is the end of the agglomeration. And this agglomeration looks like a semicircle. And the Russians are trying to cut and to establish almost complete control over the central part, just with one purpose: to ruin the logistic and communication lines between the most northern and the most southern parts of this agglomeration. And during the previous 24 hours, we received lots of videos already from the city of Kramatorsk. Here we can see how Russians were attacking vehicles of the armored forces of Ukraine that were moving in this area with FPV drones. So which means that problems are brewing. Here we can see a position that was attacked by the Russians with FPV drones in the area of the city of Kramatorsk in its eastern part. Here we can see probably some position was damaged and destroyed. Maybe the Ukrainians were using this territory for FPV drone operators, who knows. But this area is under complete control. Furthermore, we start receiving updates from the area of the city of Slaviansk. The same things. The Ukrainians are sending reinforcements, but the Russians attacked vehicles that Ukrainians use for these purposes. So the situation is quite complicated. And meanwhile, of course, the Russians are keeping advancing in the area of Krivaya Luka along these strategical hills. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of videos on this matter. Here we can see an artillery preparation carried out by Russians, and it seems that we are witnessing the final days of the settlement of Krivaya Luka and of the Ukrainian foothold on the Russian side of the Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal. Most likely coming days we will see changes, and once again, according to the Russian let's say behavior and their habits, it seems that according to the Russian pattern, it seems that before the 9th of May the Russian will declare significant progress on the ground right exactly in this area. The Russians are collecting this information. We haven't received almost anything about changes on the ground for a very long period of time, but it doesn't mean that there are no changes. The changes are present, but the Russians probably are trying to accumulate them before May's holidays. As for the city of Konstantinovka, the settlement is under very heavy fire. The situation is very difficult. The logistic is disrupted by Russians. Here we can see another probable logistic line that was almost under complete control, that is under complete control of the armored force of the Russian Federation. The Ukrainians are not able to do anything in this area. Everything that they try to send in this direction of Konstantinovka is being hit by Russians immediately. Furthermore, the Russians are keeping bombing the settlement of Konstantinovka with aviation. Lots of videos, lots of updates were reported and published on this matter. The Russians are trying to break through Ukraine's defense and to breach the defense lines of the city of Konstantinovka, but it seems that still the Ukrainians are holding their positions. But once again, everything can be changed during these upcoming months between the 12th of April, the end of Easter, and the beginning of May holidays. As for the Zaporizhzhia direction, during the previous 24 hours, nothing special was recorded in the eastern direction. The Russians are keeping advancing and trying to take under complete control the cities of Verkhnya Tersk and Vozdvizhivka. But when talking about the western Zaporizhzhia direction, during the previous 24 hours, we received lots of very interesting updates. And these are the videos and updates I'm talking about. In this video, we can see the Russian FPV drone that was attacking positions and forces of the armored forces of Ukraine in the area of the settlement of Kuzhubun, which is already a part of the Zaporizhzhia agglomeration. So the value of this video is not these strikes, because nothing special we can see through these strikes. The most important is that the Russians currently are able to fly over the city of Zaporizhzhia with FPV drones, which means that the logistics and everything connected and related to the city, to the military part of the city of Zaporizhzhia will be capabilities would be reduced significantly. The Russians, and this is probably the first video when we can see Russian FPV drones flying over the city of Zaporizhzhia and attacking positions and forces of the armored forces of Ukraine. We have covered most of the updates related to the situation in Ukraine, and now let's discuss the situation in the Middle East, because something strange and interesting is happening there right now. To understand the conflict, the Middle East conflict, we're not talking about the big understanding, major understanding of the situation. I'm talking about the current situation, the 10th of April of 2026. To understand what is happening right now on the territory of the Middle East, we need to understand and to keep in our minds two important things. The first one is coming from the state of Israel. Let's discuss this situation in details. According to information we have, according to updates, hearings on 3 corruption cases against Netanyahu will resume on April 12th after a break since the end of February due to an operation against Iran, the Jerusalem District Court reported. So this is a very interesting situation. I would like to remind you that these hearings should started several weeks ago, but they were postponed due to the beginning of the conflict in the Middle East. And due to the fact that the President of the United States of America announced a ceasefire or temporary truce between the coalition and Iran, we see that the courts of Israel decided to resume these hearings. Another important thing is that today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has requested to cancel his court testimony for at least the next 2 weeks, citing the security situation according to Israeli Channel 12. So I would like to remind you that the coalition and the United States of America, they declared a ceasefire with the Iranian side, but the Israel state of Israel decided not to declare anything. And the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, stated that we continue to strike Hezbollah with full force and we will not stop until we restore your security. So this is the first thing that we need to keep in our mind. And the second thing, to understand what exactly is happening in the area of the Middle East, is the updates that we are receiving from the United States of America. And we are talking about another political scandal, but this time connected to the First Lady Melania Trump. Today she stated that I'm not a witness or a named individual in connection with any Epstein crimes. My name has never appeared in court documents, depositions, victim statements, or many other things. So she made lots of statements on this matter, because according to information we have, according to media sources, different secret sources and so on, related to the French intelligence service, leaked documents where we can see the First Lady of the United States of America and some people and some scenes or situations related to this probably, I don't know how to call this island. So this is the situation, and of course, and these are huge political scandals, both for the President of the United States of America and for the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, regarding corruption scandals. So which means, and according to pattern, the Russians have their pattern according to the Easter truce and so on, and of course the Western countries have their own pattern when big political scandals appears, and the only way how to calm down this political crisis in this situation is to make something that can sound louder, and the only thing that can sound louder than political scandals like this is the sound of bombs and missiles, the Tomahawk missiles, the sound and the voice of B-2 bombers, and so on. So which means that most likely, even in coming hours, the ceasefire on the territory of the Middle East will be stopped. This process will end, and the clashes will resume. And we have everything that confirms this situation. For example, according to information we have, the Vice President of the United States of America, J.D. Vance, have already departed to the Middle East with the purpose to have a meeting with the delegation of the Iranian side on the territory of Pakistan, and the delegation, the vice president, have already came to Pakistan, but his plane has already arrived or will arrive in coming hours. The negotiations are scheduled on this Saturday, so tomorrow. But according to information we have, the Iranians in the last moment cancelled the meeting with the United States of America, and they cancelled the negotiation process. The Iranians are saying that two of the measures mutually agreed upon between the parties have yet to be implemented: a ceasefire in Lebanon and the release of Iran's blocked assets prior to the commencement of negotiations. These two matters must be fulfilled before negotiations begin. Maybe during the time when I'm making this video, something changes, and maybe the situation is completely different right now because everything is so fast. But as of the moment when I start making this video, this is the reality that I was living in. So this is the situation, and it seems that no talks on the territory of Iran, which means that now the United States of America and Israel can continue the military operation Epic Fury, or maybe the second part of, or the second operation, the next operation will has another title, who knows. And most likely when the financial markets is closed, and this is going to happen very soon, between Friday and Saturday, everything can start from the beginning, because despite the fact that the United States of America announced a ceasefire truce, we continue receiving updates on U.S. transport planes that were moving from U.S. bases in Europe towards the Middle East, and they're keeping flying and bringing more and more missiles, more and more arms and weapons in this region. Furthermore, we know that the United States of America finished the redeployment of troops, at least of a significant number of troops in this region, with the purpose probably even to carry out the landing operation, a ground operation. So let's wait and see what is happening in coming hours, because this weekend is going to be a very important one, and obviously something will happen. Meanwhile, the Iranians continue controlling the Strait of Hormuz. The sources reported that during the previous 24 hours, several vessels and tankers managed to cross the Strait of Hormuz, but at the same time, the traffic through the Strait of Hormuz is still on very low level. This is the picture from this area. As you can see, just several vessels were able to cross the Strait of Hormuz during the previous 24 hours, and we have some reports about mines. For example, it's interesting that the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran was largely able to mine, is still functioning. However, its operation is limited and only available to those who have paid the toll. Ships pass through the narrow bottleneck between the islands of Larak and Keshim, so there has been no breakthrough in this part. Tehran has not been able to be banned yet, and it continues to maintain control over the main artery and the global energy market. And the President of the United States of America, of course, made statements on this matter, saying that Iran must open or reopen the Strait of Hormuz immediately, but it seems that nobody is going to do this. Meanwhile, the European countries are increasing their pressure on the President of the United States of America, and they made a joint statement from the leaders of the United Kingdom, France, Italy, Germany, Canada, Denmark, Netherlands, Spain, the European Commission, the European Council, and Japan. And according to these statements, these countries think that they call upon all sides to implement the ceasefire, including in Lebanon. And probably the worst statement that was made by the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom regarding the situation with his relations with Trump and the United States of America. He said that he is tired of both President of Russia and President of the United States of America. He said that I'm fed up with the fact that families across the country see their bills go up and down on energy, businesses bills go up and down on energy because of the actions of Putin and Trump across the world. Also, he added, he compared the US President Putin and admitted he's unhappy with the impact of the Iran war on British families. So this is a very, let's say, not dangerous, but very interesting statements made by the European leaders on the President of the United States of America and his position regarding the conflict in Iran. As of the end of the 10th of April of 2026, the oil prices were recorded on the level of $100 per barrel, and they will not grow more until the Monday and this weekend, and things that are going to happen during the next 2 days will give us the understanding what is the next level of prices we should wait, either lower like of $90 or even higher than $150 per barrel. And that's it for today. The Military with Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.